Alabama secondary is at the main focus right now of this football team. This weekend, we've got some huge visitors, including today in Tuscaloosa. We've got a special guest to talk about that and more. What's Alabama doing? 2 guys out in the secondary, 1 guy in, and possibly more on the way. This is the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. I mean, if you like the content, that's a great way to do it. And hit the bell so you know when we're dropping shows. And when football season's coming, we're going to be doing a lot of stuff right here. Roll Tide. All right. What do you say, everybody? And look at this panel of people on the show today, brought to you by newlifeart.com. Use the promo code Bama Tailgate. You know him from WJLX in Jasper, Mr. Brett Elmore, big sexy Elmo. But look at this right here. There he is from BamaOnline, our friend and it's good to see you, man. Clint Lamb. What's up, dude?
What's up, fellas? I'm looking forward to talking a little Alabama football. Mick, it's been a while, brother. A little too long.
Too long, man. Too long. But we'll get into the nitty gritty on what's going on in a second. But let's talk football right now, straight out of the chute. Brett and I have been very concerned with this cornerback position. You only got 2 guys with experience and not much at all in that. We see these safeties leaving. What's going on right now with Isaiah Hamilton and Deshaun Jones? Does Alabama have to have these guys? And why are people transferring?
Yeah, I think the number one thing you got to look at is just from a numbers standpoint. It's not where it needs to be. 5 cornerbacks currently on the roster, 7 safeties. You're typically up there in that 14 or 15 range collectively, or at least you have been under Nick Saban. And so from a depth standpoint, you need to add people, but it's not just adding bodies just to add bodies. You need to add experience and talent too. And I think that both Hamilton and really, Jones as well, both guys, one from Wake Forest, one from Houston. Hamilton's a guy who's been like a multi-year starter. He's played over 2,000 career snaps, really good player. But Jones is a guy who had 3 interceptions last year. He was a starter last year, so he's got that experience factor. He's made an impact throughout his career. He's been hearing from some big-time programs such as LSU and Georgia, Michigan, Ole Miss. So that's something to kind of look at, because when you look at the numbers that Alabama currently has, you have a transfer who has no experience playing for Alabama, 0. You got a guy who's been a year in the system, but he's a redshirt freshman in Jaleel Hurley, and then you got 3 true freshmen. And so from an experience standpoint, the talent's there. I mean, all these guys, 4 former 5-star players. Jaleel Hurley was a former top 50 prospect, so they were all top 50 players at one time coming out of high school, but virtually 0 experience outside of Damani Jackson, and he's still kind of in some ways viewed as a project. So you would like to get a guy who's been there, done that, add a little bit more experience to your secondary, and someone who's more of a polished, finished product to where you can kind of build around that. Because if you can do that, if one of these freshmen ends up stepping up and taking a starting job, it won't be through necessity. It'll be because they were good enough to do it. So I think that that's really critical for Alabama to not only just add somebody. You can't just add anybody. I mean, you got to add some talent. They got a couple of guys who, they're interested in. I don't know how much of a possibility Hamilton is right now. Obviously, he's an Ole Miss lean, according to a lot of people. But I think, Jones is a very important target for Alabama, and they got to make a favorable impression on him this weekend.
Those 2 guys, those 2 teams run the same scheme defensively. How important, as Alabama's new scheme will be under the new defensive coordinator, how important do you think that is? And also, I was going to ask you another question of, if you had to choose one of these true freshmen with no experience, who's the one guy that you see stepping up and making the difference initially?
Well, I think both Hamilton and Jones, I mean, they both have talent and they both have that experience. Obviously, Hamilton, a couple of years ago, he was more of a true left corner. He exclusively played on the left side of the field, and that's something that Nick Saban was really big on, the kind of having the cornerbacks that are in one spot. having the field and boundary approach like you're going to see under Kane Womack, you want to see guys who have that versatility to do both. And so a guy like Hamilton, last year he got experience doing that. Jones has experience doing it. And so I think that's important because a lot of these guys, I mean, granted, they're all true freshmen, so they don't really have experience on the college level with anything. But a guy like Jalil Hurley, who is a returning starter, he didn't have any experience doing that field and boundary style of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I think that's important. When you talk about the freshmen, I would say this is kind of how I've put it to people. If you were talking about year 3, a couple of years from now, I think you're talking Jalen Mbakwe is probably the highest ceiling player you have. If you're talking about right now in the most college-ready corner, and I've been saying this way before even the spring, it's Xavier Brown. And he proved it throughout the spring by working with the first-team defense. The coaching staff absolutely loves him. He's very technically savvy, understands the position, the nuances of playing it at a high level. And I think you can get, either field or boundary play out of him. And so he's got a little bit of flexibility based off of, I think Damani Jackson with his athleticism, he's probably going to be your field guy. But, Xavier Brown has enough physicality and he's very, technically advanced for a true freshman that would allow him to survive as a boundary corner where you're going to get a lot of targets. You're going to see a lot of action in the run game. I think a guy like Xavier Brown in year 1 can probably make the biggest impact.
What about the safety spot? You see the 2 guys leave, Woodyard, and I was surprised Tony Mitchell left. I don't know why. It was just kind of surprising to me, but they bring one guy in and then they lose 2 guys, and then there's maybe rumors that they're going to bring somebody else into that same spot. What's going on there? And does Alabama have an issue with NIL? Because we're used to these guys winning. Alabama and Nick Saban won. If they said they wanted someone, they got them. It doesn't feel like that's the case right now.
Well, I think one thing that helped, at least in the secondary, was Nick Saban. I mean, obviously he was more of a cornerbacks guy, but, playing a defensive back under him was considered an honor, and you really weren't going to get better coaching than you were going to get under him. And so obviously that's going to hurt your secondary when you lose a presence like that. And not only do you lose him, but, a potential recruit or a potential transfer, they look at what could have been at Alabama and what it currently is. And it's, no one else has Nick Saban either. So it's not like anybody else has that advantage over Alabama, but, Alabama no longer is viewed as that prime destination, or at least it doesn't right now at those couple of spots. But at safety, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, when you look at the corners, 7 losses, and you're talking a couple of those to the NFL, Interior and Arnold and Kool-Aid McKinstry, but you're talking the transfer portal. Just look at the list. I mean, you got Trey Amos, who ended up at Ole Miss. You got Earl Little Jr., who ended up at Florida State. Des Ricks at Texas A&M, Antonio Kite at Auburn, Jameer Grimsley at Florida. Mm-hmm. All SEC programs, except for Florida State, who's, obviously they were in the national championship hunt this past year. And then you look at safety, arguably what could have ended up being the best safety in Alabama football history in Caleb Downs. But then you got an experienced guy like Jalen Key, Mr. Irrelevant in the NFL draft. You got Christian Story, SEC again with Kentucky, Jake Pope, Georgia, SEC. We don't know where Tony Mitchell is going to end up. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a place like Auburn. We'll have to wait and see. But then you also lose Peyton Woodyard, who had just arrived on campus. So from a total loss standpoint, 13 different players, I don't know that we've ever seen anything like that. And so what's left over is talent without experience. And I think that's very important to note is I think the position long-term is going to be fine, but there's going to already be some growing pains with the scheme changes. But you're throwing in on top of that the fact that there's virtually 0 experience. And so I'll be curious to see how they attack that, what can help compensate, win on early downs, which I think Alabama's got a really good interior defensive front that can position them to do that quite a bit. But then also you got to have a complementary pass rush who can apply pressure on the quarterback and take as much pressure off of the back half of your defense as possible. We think Alabama's going to be pretty stout in that area. That's one of the more loaded positions out there at that Wolf spot. But, they got to be able to do it consistently, and we haven't really seen it with the losses of Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell. So that's something that's TBD as well, I guess. So it could end up being all okay. But if you have question marks at this point in the offseason, I don't think that's unwarranted.
Since we're talking about the DBs and everything, let's just touch a little bit on the interior, the front, since we're talking defense, and talk a little bit about that and what you're seeing there.
Yeah, just a really deep group. I mean, when you look at the guys who are returning, compared to, last year. I mean, Jaheim Otis missed the spring with an injury, but he's expected to be back. You got Tim Smith back. You got James Smith. You got Tim Keenan. You got Damon Payne. Just the interior rotation that they're going to have can run at least 5, maybe even 6 deep. And then you like some of those younger guys who are also on the roster there. You've got that new Bandit spot, which is absolutely loaded up. LT Overton transfers over from Texas A&M. You got Jamarian Latham. That's the perfect combination of a returning player who has experience in Alabama system and an experienced transfer,
right,
who's actually played quite a bit. But then a guy like Jordan Renaud, who's one of my favorite players, or at least he was in last year's recruiting class. He's that guy that I kind of viewed as somewhat of a tweener in Nick Saban's defense, but playing that bandit position, that kind of a heavy end-esque, who's going to want to be a true 3-down edge. That's Jordan Renaud perfectly. I mean, he's got the power profile that you look for in that position where he can stop the run, but he can survive as an edge rusher on passing or in passing situations. And so you love the guys that they have at that spot. You also got, Keon Keeley, a former top 10 prospect. Everybody wants him to get on the field. He's got a lot of talent in front of him. But I mean, when you're talking about him being your 4th or 5th bandit right now, that's a pretty good spot to be in for that position. And then you got that wolf spot, just a lot of rotation, a lot of different players, a lot of former 5-stars. But we think it's going to be Q Robinson and Keanu Coote. But you also got some young guys like Quay Russo and Yanze Pierre, who could end up factoring into that as well. And I'll also say that the coaching staff, even though he hadn't been on campus yet, they absolutely love Noah Carter.
Yeah, and Noah Carter is the guy that was going to be at Washington with these guys and then slid down to Alabama with Coach DeBoer and company. Mike, I guess I'm going back to the secondary with this question, but what the hell? I mean, why are all these guys going? I mean, what happened? I've never seen anything like this. It's like Saban leaves and we lose a bunch of guys. And I figured that had to do with NIL. And I'm going to be honest with you. I think that as much as I love Nick Saban and think he did a great job in a lot of areas, I had been hearing for a while that Coach Saban was very hesitant about the NIL. Now, we were seeing Coach DeBoer being the exact opposite. I mean, he's out there. We saw him at the Floor Bama at the Mullet Toss down in Orange Beach to do a fundraiser basically for NIL. Is this why? I mean, like you mentioned all those guys and they're all at SEC programs. What was it about that position group that if you took them away, we really didn't lose that many guys?
That's actually a really good question. I will say right now, what's the desire to be a depth player at Alabama? Because at safety, I mean, you got Malachi Moore and Keon Sabb. I mean, they're going to be your top 2 guys, period. You got Devontae Smith. You got a true freshman such as Red Morgan. Both those 2 guys are working at that Husky spot. Kalen DeBoer, way before Peyton Woodyard or Tony Mitchell elected to enter the transfer portal, at least to the point that fans knew, he had said they were looking to upgrade the secondary, and that included both from a number standpoint at corner and an experience standpoint at corner, but they also, if the right guy was available, they were willing to target a safety. And so I think Cameron Howard, he was a guy, the transfer from Charlotte, he was going to be a guy they looked at regardless. And they wanted more experience kind of, we saw it last year. Everybody wondered, you got experience out there at corner. You got Terrion Arnold, you got Kool-Aid McKinstry. Why in the world are you bringing in Trey Amos and you're risking the Des Ricks of the world, leaving the Antonio Kites?
Right.
And it's like, what ended up happening? Guys had injuries. Trey Amos ended up playing a major role in a couple of games. It was, Nick Saban playing chess and everybody else playing checkers. It was a really good thing they had Amos last year. He's the one that I'm really confused about as to why he elected to transfer out, but I think his was NIL related. And so, you look at that and you say, at corner, there are opportunities. At safety, right now in the immediate, probably not. So those guys leaving isn't overly shocking, because what you were doing before is if you were a depth guy, you were saying, I trust Nick Saban. I trust, quote unquote, the process. And I know I'm going to get my time and I'm going to end up in the NFL. If that's not there, or it's not as trusted, then if you're a depth guy, you're handling it like any other school, where if you're not playing, you want to get somewhere and play, or you need to be paying them a lot of money to stick around. And so it's a combination of factors with NIL, with Nick Saban no longer being around, where there's not quite as much of a trust factor that's been established there yet. And it's the fact that, at least the safety position, there just wasn't many opportunities for playing time in the immediate. And then they were targeting more experienced guys who were coming in. And Howard's only going to be a sophomore, so he's got 3 more years potentially. So I think it was a combination of factors, but that would probably be my justification for it right now, at least.
Before Brett asks a question, I want to tell you, Clint, and I know you're new here, about the guy that's sitting in here with us.
They call him Big Sexy, coming at you from the Walker County. Jasper is his hometown. He's known for giving free rundowns. Oh, Big Sexy, throwing out those Alabama thoughts, sneaking out your mom's window without getting caught. Nick gives you the XPs, but Big Elmore is here to please. Big Sexy Elmore on the Bama Tailgate Show.
All right. With that said, here's Brett.
Have you ever experienced anything like that before?
That might be the greatest thing I've ever seen. And I will say, about 3 or 4 seconds in, I was worried, and then it went from being good to just magical. That was, I don't know, how long was that? 20 seconds, 30 seconds? It was whatever it was. I would argue that was the best 20 to 30 seconds of my life, and that's really saying something. I've had some good moments.
Right? Yeah. That's what a lot of people say. I know it's Cinco de Mayo weekend, and I am supporting the NIL by buying a couple of bottles of the Yay Alabama vodka. That would probably be a good way to support the NIL. I don't know. Now, I was wanting to ask you this. It's a different world in college football now with the NIL and the transfer portal. And obviously with everything that has transpired over the offseason, with Saban retiring, DeBoer coming in, you're having to handle all this stuff. If you were to give Coach DeBoer a grade as on how he has handled the transition, the portal, the NIL, his plan coming in, because let's face it, when Saban retired, it seemed like the world was coming to an end. Folks were transferring out, whole 9 yards. Just wanted your take on that.
Oh man, if I'd put a grade on it, I would be somewhere between a B+ and an A-, but I'm leaning A-. I mean, I won't go A or A+. I don't think it's quite been that good, but I will say, based off of, just imagine being an Alabama fan. And I told people this for years, or at least like the last few years. I tried to prepare Alabama fans for post Nick Saban. I'm like, it's going to be rocky in this new transfer portal era. And the fact that there's going to be panic, you're going to see a mass exodus of players, and it's going to be bad. And, it's a matter of how are they viewing it? Do they look at a bridge guy? Do they look at somebody? I mean, who's willing to follow Nick Saban? How good can that coach be? And then everything that kind of transpired and the way that it transpired, and the fact that even I'll admit, when Kalen DeBoer's name first kind of became what everybody was locking in on, when you've talked about Dan Lanning or potentially Steve Sarkisian or, maybe even a Lane Kiffin, I was a little bit skeptical until you actually stop and look at it and you remove the fact that he's figured out a way to make it work everywhere he's been. And from a recruiting standpoint, he does whatever's necessary. He makes the necessary adjustments. And the thing about him, he might not have experience recruiting in the South, but he's a people person, and he knows how to connect with people. And I think that that's so critical, because when you're trying to sell your vision in an NIL era, it's okay. You're going to pay players. That's going to be a part of it. But you're also trying to sell what your program can provide that others don't, giving your program those advantages. I think DeBoer is an excellent salesman because he truly believes in what he's selling, and he's building an environment. I've respected the fact that he hadn't been there's just been zero fear. He's been willing to keep some of the things that Nick Saban had, like the fourth quarter program, that were successful, but he's also been more than willing to not adopt everything. And he's been willing to make the changes where he needed to make them, where he thought there needed to be changes. And so, not a fearful guy by any means. And just the amount of players that they've been able to hang on to, key players, on top of the fact that you go out and you secure a Ryan Williams, you lose his commitment, and then you get him to recommit when he's getting a ton of pressure from other programs. That's huge. Has he won every battle, up to this point? Absolutely not. But I think his vision is pretty on point. But I think recruits, whether it be transfers or recruits, what will help them is kind of seeing the product on the field. And as long as there's nothing that's overly dysfunctional, you would expect some transition. Or, should fans be expecting a national championship this year? Maybe, but probably not. And so you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, are guys playing hard for their coach? Is there dysfunction that's being created in the locker room if there's adversity? Things like that. I think DeBoer's going to handle all that stuff well, and I think that's going to earn the respect of a lot of people, and I think that's only going to build the momentum that Alabama's brand already comes with. And so I would say, just based off of how bad I thought it could get when Nick Saban retired, based off of where it's currently at, if you're an Alabama fan, you couldn't have asked for much more. So I would probably say an A-, but at the very least, in my opinion, it's a B+.
Perfect. It was a great answer. Mick, do you have anything else? I was looking at Clint's setup there, and I noticed the guitar in the back, and maybe we could collab some on some new jingles for me, and maybe we could work on one for Mick. You play that guitar?
I can play one chord. I will say my brother's a guitarist.
Okay.
Very good at it. And I had very high expectations for myself. And I went out and I bought a nice guitar. I mean, it's a Martin. I spent a little money. I said, you know what? If Jay can do it, I can do it. And then I realized very quickly, this is taking up way too much of my time, and I wouldn't do any better. I mean, it was bad. So now all that serves is a conversation piece when I'm on here and it's in the background. Everybody asks, can he play it? And I get to tell them no. I can play one chord. I can play Simple Man, but just the basic parts, none of that fancy stuff.
All right, nothing jamming out. Well, what do we got going on today, Brett?
Today's the fourth day of May, and kind of why I brought it up. Are you familiar with Mick Mars?
I'm not.
Guitarist for Motley Crue.
Oh yeah. Well, okay. Now I'm going to get in trouble by both my wife and my brother for not knowing that.
and Mick as well. Mick's a Motley Crue fan too. You know how old Mick Mars is today?
I'm going to say, oh man, Motley Crue, 73. What do you think, Clint?
I was going to say, yes, somewhere in his 70s.
73. Mick, how do you do this?
I don't know.
Are you cheating?
No, I'm not. I swear I'm not. I just like think about it. I know. I just think about
it. He's a Motley Crue fan, right? He definitely has all their birthdays saved somewhere. That's what's going on here. He's fanboying a little too hard.
Hey, I'm two for my last two on this.
Right. Randy Travis, country singer, 65 today.
I love Randy Travis.
Randy Travis 65?
Song? Yeah.
I would have thought he was older than. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
A favorite Randy Travis song?
What is it? Amen.
Yeah, Forever and Ever.
Amen.
I love that one. But there's a ton of them.
Yeah. And golfer Rory McIlroy, 35 today.
Wow.
Today, if you're looking for something to celebrate, today is Star Wars Day.
Yeah. May the 4th be with you guys.
Today
hold on. Favorite Star Wars character. I'm going to go first. My favorite character is Han Solo. He's one of the baddest dudes. And you talk about character creation where he's kind of not a good, it used to be like you were either a good guy or a bad guy. He's kind of in between. Like he's a good guy, but he's a bad guy. He's a smuggler. He's doing bad stuff, but he always kind of, just shows up and does the right thing. But it's always hard for him to do. I love his character, and he's my favorite one. What about you, Clint?
I will say the fact that he's always having to talk his way out of situations and he's not overly good at it.
No,
I can relate to that so much, where you find yourself in a situation where you're trying to trying to get out of it with words and just no one's buying what you're selling. I would say with the new Star Wars though, even though I don't think it's even a fraction as good as the old, I love BB-8, a little robot, R2D2.
Oh yeah, the round guy.
Yeah, that's a great character. No words, but doesn't matter.
All right, Brett, back to you.
I've never watched Star Wars. Is Jabba the Hutt one of them?
Yeah.
I'll go with him.
All right, go with Jabba. He got choked to death, by the way.
Did he really?
Dude was living the dream before that, though.
Yeah, it's Princess Leia. Remember, she wrapped that chain and choked him to death.
Oh my goodness!
I had the Jabba the Hutt play set. I got that for my 8th birthday.
Some people would say that's a good way to go out. By the way,
I was about to say, there's something in there.
Jabba would come off, and then there would be like there was like a trap thing underneath there, and I had like the little guys that ran around with them. I loved Star Wars. Opposite of you, Brett.
Yeah, I know you got that for your last birthday, not your 8th.
I would play with it right now.
Yeah. Beer pong day.
I mean, come on. Why does everybody look at me when you talk about anything like beer related? Like, like right away, throw me in the box. Like, I have played beer pong before. It's just a little too slow for me. I got to drink faster than that.
Right.
Well, that's why you have you're nursing your friend in a can, and then you also have the stuff in front of you. If your opponents are good enough, it's not slow at all.
No.
When they start missing a lot of cups, you'll go a minute.
Right.
That's good times, man.
I just know being at bars, like we'll play beer pong, and for some reason, like I don't know, maybe it's the people I'm playing with, the ping pong ball ends up all over the floor. Like you're just constantly chasing the ping pong ball in the bar.
There's no cool way to chase a ping pong ball.
No,
zero.
No.
You're never going to look cool doing that.
In related news, it is also Herb Day, and National Homebrew Day. Naked
what kind
garden.
of herb?
Huh?
What kind of herb? I mean, if we just whatever herb
you want there, Mick.
Like Kentucky Fried Chicken herbs. Like how many herbs and spices was it that made the Colonel's chicken so good?
11.
11 herbs and spices. Okay, just wondering.
I think 11 herbs and spices.
Let me ask you guys this question. Okay, and so Brett, just hold your thought because I want to ask. This is a serious question. Is fried chicken the greatest chicken of all the chickens?
That's a question. That's a loaded.
Done right. Like grandma's fried chicken. I'm not talking about like
I don't
crappy stuff. I mean, like
crisp has to be done correctly. But if it is, we talk about magical. That's pretty magical.
It is.
Yeah.
I would say it is.
And also, it's World Naked Gardening Day, and also National Join Hands Day. So after you garden naked, y'all just join hands. Everything's great.
We've got so many weirdos now in the world that like people, and look, I have been to the Sunny Bud nudist colony in Jasper, and I'm just kidding, it was a joke, but I would say it's at Slate Creek, okay?
Yeah, Slate Creek.
But of all the things that you want to do naked, gardening is not one.
Yeah.
I mean, think about
pick up that potato over there.
What are you gardening though?
I don't know.
Shouldn't that be part of this conversation?
Are you hoeing that over there?
Somebody, like, I don't know. Maybe I just haven't been to the right garden, but my grandparents' garden, I had to go out there. They would give me.
I wouldn't do that naked. I would not.
No.
There's like potato bugs. You got to pull all these potato bugs off, put them in the can. Like there's all these cicadas everywhere. And they're out again. I can remember, like you couldn't even see. It looked like it was snowing. There were so many one year. I wouldn't want to do any of that stuff naked. As a matter of fact, I would want to wear extra clothes. Not, I don't even care how hot it is. Give me some sleeves up there and gloves.
And I know we're running short of time, but 3 things happened this day in history, probably of importance. 1932, convicted of income tax evasion, Al Capone, public enemy number 1, entered the federal pen.
Yeah.
It was also this day, 1960, the birth control pill was approved by the FDA. 1970.
So I could take that a lot of places. Brett,
oh yeah, that's why I was trying to move quick. Yeah, let's not even go down that rabbit hole. 1970, and this would tie into Alabama. Ohio's National Guard troops opened fire on anti-Vietnam War protesters at Kent State University, killing 4 students and wounding 9 others. Of course, you hear Coach Saban telling that story a lot because he was on campus when all that was going down back in 1970.
Yeah, great song by Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young about that. And,
Ohio,
God bless those people for standing up for peace.
Yep, that's exactly right. But Unabomber also convicted on 4 life sentences this day in 98. But anyway, that's it, man.
That's it.
May the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with all you guys. And again, brought to you by New Life Art. Use the promo code Bama Tailgate. Clint, tell everyone where they can catch you at. And thanks for coming and hanging out with us. Let's start doing this, man. Great to see you.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had fun with both of you boys. You can find me over at BamaOnline. The talk, well, I guess no longer the Talk of Champions. It's now the Roundtable message board. A lot of fun over there. You can also see my written work on the BamaOnline website. And then we got the BOL YouTube channel. If you haven't already, go like and subscribe over there. And once again, fellas, this was fun, and we definitely need to do it again soon.
Well, we really enjoyed having you, and I'm going to leave you up there just so Brett can stare at you from 2 different places. Right there see him down there, the Brett Elmore Show, Monday through Friday. Look at him; he's got a real good look at your guitar. Brett, tell everybody about the show.
Brett Elmore Show, weekdays 6 till 10, WJLX1015FM.com. You can hear us if you're in the area on, of course, terrestrial radio, but if not, on all major apps. Look forward to seeing you.
Thanks for hanging out with us, guys, and Roll Tide.